Hey everyone, Gil here at Camppatton Family Compound in Idaho. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make an emergency candle or a survival candle. Alright, so let's head on down to the shop and work on it. Alright everybody, so to make a survival candle, you just need a can. It can be any type can. Heck, you can be a small tuna fish can. The object is to make a candle that is cheap and efficient, works, and is able to put out enough light for you. So, what I'm doing here is I'm taking an old Bush's baked bean can, this size here. And what I'm doing is, I also happen to have here, move that out of the way, aim this down here so you can see what I got on the table here. I have a bunch of old candles, all sorts of different colors and types. I'm gonna pick them up by the handfuls and boxfuls at garage sales and people just moving, they're giving stuff away. So I just gather up all the candles I can all the time. So let me show you what I do with it here. So I measure it. I want it a little bit shorter than the top of the can because I want to be able to put the lid back on the can afterwards, and that's important for later on. So you make it a little bit short, you cut it for where the wick is, and then you cut down the wick to expose it. So I'm going to take this broken candle here and I'm going to show you how I'm doing that. So I'll take my master here, I'll lay it next to it, and I'll mark where the end of the wick is. I'll roll it back and forth with the utility knife here and just slowly cut right on through it here. There we go. So now I need to expose some wick. So I take the knife again, I come down, ½ inch or so, and I don't press quite as hard. I just roll it slowly and I break off pieces of the wax that will break off. And I put it here in my pan here of hot wax, so I just reuse it. Slowly cut it. As I get closer to the wick, I gotta be really careful not to cut the wick. Just keep cutting at it just a little bit at a time here. Twist it off. Sometimes I take and I'll cut it down into it here. I can see the wick and I'll cut next to it to expose it, make it easier to get at it without damaging the wick. And when it's small enough, everything just peels right off, leaving the wick just like that. Now, I've already done several of them here, so I got several in the can here, and I will put this one here will have 5 wicks in it. So what I'm going to do to space it, I'm going to need to put a little bit of hot wax in the bottom, and as it cools on the can, I'm going to set the candle pieces in there spaced out evenly, and then when it hardens, then I'll add more hot wax to it. So first, take these out, add some wax to it. To do that, I take an old basting tube. I suck up, make showing that right, so I get here so you can see it. I suck up some wax into it, just enough. Put probably about 3/16 of an inch to 1/4 inch of wax across the bottom. I'll set that to the side. Alright, so I got liquid wax in there. Go ahead and turn that down now that it's heated up. When I first heat the wax up, I do it at 160 degrees. Once it gets all melted, then I turn it down to 140, make it a little bit safer to work with. Alright, so then I stick these in. So you see how I got it? So I got the 5 candles in there. Now, with the wax in there, I just let it sit for a while till it cools, and then I'll come back to it. Alright guys, so in working with making these fire starters and candles and stuff, anything with wax, safety is a primary concern, because when you're melting the wax, it does give off vapors, and if you're using an open flame to heat the pan, those vapors can travel over the edge of the pan and down to the open flame, and you can have a flashover. So to avoid that, some people like to use a double boiler. Now puts it farther away and there's no immediate heat, flame contact to the pan. You're heating the water's heating the pan that has the wax in it. I take it a step further. There's a real cool invention called a induction stovetop or an induction hot plate. And that is what I have here, an induction hot plate. So the pans I use have the steel wafer in them and stuff, so it heats up from the magnetic induction of the hot plate. No open flame, no heat source to ignite the wax. The pans I'm using are old ones that we've been using for years, and the Teflons wore off and got scratched off, and we're not really comfortable using them to cook food anymore. So I took them out of the trash as my wife started to throw them away. Wait a minute, I can use this, I can recycle it, and I use that to heat the wax in. So as you can see here, I put I just put pieces of candle in here, get them, break them in half, stick the pieces of candle in there, and let it melt down. So give that a few more minutes to melt down. Okay, so the my candles here have basically that 3/16 to 1/4 inch of wax is set up on the bottom here. So now I'm going to put the can over here. I'm going to add more wax to it. Alright, so the amount of wax I put into it was probably about 1 inch worth now. So I'm going to just let that sit and cool. And once that one's cooled off, then I can fill it the rest of the way up. Because I don't want the wax to heat up to the hot wax going in to melt the lower wax which are holding the candle straight. So I just put just enough in there to build up a base layer in there. Alright, we'll be back in a minute. Now when I'm melting the wax in the pan, the candles and stuff, wind up with a bunch of wicks in there. Well, I just take the wicks, I lift the wicks out, let all the wax strip off them as much as possible. I just kind of save them because I will use them later for other things, or making other type candles. Yeah. So never waste anything, reuse everything. See, so I got a bunch of wicks here that I can use later on. Now, looks like the wax is setting up pretty good in this candle here. So, let's back over to the edge here. Let's fill that up the rest of the way. So what you wind up with here is the candles are sticking just a little bit above the wet wax I filled up. So it'll start burning down in. You'll get yourself a good wick flame going on here, and then it'll slowly burn into it. This makes for a more safe candle. It doesn't fall over like, candles like this get knocked over real easy. That's a little bit more stable, and it gives you a little bit the heat source and lighting. All right, so when that sets up, that'll be done, and then I'll just take one of the lids here, like this, and I'll just be able to put it on it, and that's how I can put the candle out later on when it's going. You don't want, when you have multiple wicks, you really don't want to blow on the candle because it has a lot more hot wax because you have more flame in there. Also, you got 5 wicks now that are going to smoke when you blow it out. This, you put it on there, boom, traps all the smoke in there with it. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed making that candle there. So those are things you can do real easy at home. Make tall candles, short candles, whatever you want to do. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new here and haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that red button down below there. And once it turns gray, the little bell pop up. If you click on that bell, then you'll get notifications of the next video I post. You don't have to watch them. You can just look and see if there's something that interests you. All right. Also, stay tuned for the end. At the very end, I've been getting requests for any of my blooper reels, so there's going to be a little blooper on the end there. And also, I got a little thing about our 1,000 subscriber giveaway coming up here in a second. But in the meantime, you want to share this out with all your friends, neighbors, relatives, co-workers, acquaintances. The reason is you want them to get prepared as well. Because if they're prepared and they have their own supplies, guess what? They're not coming after your supplies and taking your supplies from your family in an emergency. So get your friends and neighbors and everybody else prepared. All right? And as always, stay happy, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, guys, while the candle is setting up and the other things I did there are setting up, show you something else here. Butterfingers.